Hey there, this is Yadida with another episode on Spreaker. I want to talk to you today. Did you see what the title was? Delete it. Delete it. You ever type something and make a mistake? One letter can throw your whole wording. One wrong word can throw your whole sentence off. One little thing can make such a big difference. So when we notice that a word is spelled wrong, a word has been entered that doesn't even deserve to be there, we just go ahead and delete it. Well, how come it's not as easy for us to do that in our own lives? When we hear negativity about us, when we hear lies or different things like that, why do we sit instead of deleting it like we do on the computer and let it kind of resonate and think about it a little bit too often? Sometimes we're just going to have to delete it, especially if what you're listening to is not from God. If it's not a promise that talks about what He says about you, the good things that God says about your life, the good things that He says about your future. Hey, we all hear that we're fearfully and wonderfully made. Well, sometimes the lies may say, well, no, you're not so wonderful. No, you're not so great. No, you don't have it all together. We just have to delete it. We have to get rid of it. In our homes, there comes a certain time when we go and we say, okay, we're going to do spring cleaning, and we start to get rid of the clutter that oftentimes makes a mess in our lives. Listen, I'm sure you know what I'm talking about. And we can do that purposefully. We can even put it on the calendar. We can even think ahead and say, hey, this weekend, I think I'm going to go ahead and start to do some spring cleaning. I'm going to be intentional about cleaning out that closet or that old drawer that has all of those things inside of it that we don't even need or use anymore. Well, what about in our lives? What about in our thoughts? What about even in our relationships? Some relationships I feel like we try to hold on to for a little too long, and that's not a bad thing. There just comes a time, and I think even with social media, sometimes it just allows a little bit too much access into our lives in the present when we've changed some things and we've moved on from some things from our past, and we end up trying to pull the same people that we knew we just needed. It was time for us to move on from. Not saying that the person was bad, just saying that sometimes you've got to move on. They're not necessarily aiding in your present, and maybe you're not aiding in theirs either, or helping. There's a time sometimes when we really do need to move on, and we need to just let go of the load. Let go of the load. Do the intentional cleaning out that we need to do of the clutter, of bad thoughts, of relationships that are not really aiding or bringing anything valuable. Hey, not saying that the person is bad, but sometimes you really do need to be focused. We need to be focused and not distracted. And so I can ask you this question today. Is there anything that you can think of that you need to delete? Is there anything that you need to think of? Maybe it's physical. Maybe there's something in your home that you've had for so long, and every time you look at it, it reminds you of a relationship or a time in your life when you really, really weren't all that happy. And maybe it was something someone purchased for you. It doesn't bring you joy anymore. That person is no longer in your life. Maybe it's time to let it go. I remember when my mom passed away, and she had this sweater. This is the air conditioning come on, but I always come on and it's real life, so you hear sounds. She had a sweater. It was like a turtleneck kind of tunic kind of thing. It wasn't like a full sweater either. It was a tan cow neck, really, really big necked, tunic thing that kind of sat off your shoulders. And I remember when she passed away that I had that. I didn't really want much of anything else because I could smell her on that particular article of clothing. And I kept it for a while. I used to sleep with it next to me, while I was laying down. And as I continued to go through the grieving process, thinking about just memories, as I started to move past it, and it was no longer like tormenting, because in the beginning, if you've ever watched your loved one transition and take their last breath, that's what torments you more than anything else. And so, I had that sweater and I would hold and I would sleep and all of those things. And then there came a time when I had to release that and let it go, because I had to start to move forward through the grieving process. And so just like that, sometimes we have to let things go and release them. And so I'll say this: if you are grieving, like there's a certain time when you will do that. You may hold on to things. You may not want to give things away. And so allow yourself the time that you need to be able to go through that process. Allow yourself the time and the space. Some people say, and I always used to say this, when I went through it, some people say, oh, it takes time. And I say, no, it takes God. It takes God to bring you through grief. All right. But I'm talking about some of the other things. Some of us know that it's time for us just to release some things. If every time you even talk to certain people and you're constantly fussing and bickering and all of those things, you need to take a break. You need to step back. Right? Step back so that you can move forward. You ever have to step back, like in order to go around something? You were trying to go straight forward, but it was right in front of you. So, you just took a step up, just a little step back, and then just stepped over to the side and then kept on proceeding forward. If there's a blockage in your life or something like that, sometimes you just have to do that. So be intentional. What do you need to get rid of? Some old pictures, some old love letters. That person is married, and move on. Release that. What else? Clutter. Old clothes that don't fit anymore. And, I remember I was saying, well, I know I was a size 6 many years ago, but I really love these jeans. I think, if I exercise hard enough, I can get there. I can get to that. Well, maybe a size 8. Maybe I can do that. Listen. I had to clean that out and let those pants go and some of those other things. Yeah, because I'm not that size anymore. Let's just tell the truth, right? And it doesn't mean I won't ever get to that size if I exercise a little bit more and all that stuff. But I give myself some grace. Give yourself some grace too. So, clean it up if you need to. When I say delete it, I'm not talking about hurting an individual. Please let me put that in there, because Lord have mercy. But I am saying sometimes you just got to delete those thoughts, and you have to tell those thoughts, no, that's not what God says about me. I'm his daughter, right? And if you're a man, you can say, well, I'm God's son. That's what he said. He says I'm loved. He says he cherishes me. I'm the apple of his eye. He created me to love me. So regardless of what I've been through, I'm going to delete the negativity so that I can move forward and know that I have enough, that I am enough right now, right where you're sitting, right where you're standing. You have the ability to accomplish great things as you trust in God and you believe him for the promises that he has spoke over your life. And he doesn't break his promises. Yeah, people break promises. They're humans. But God does not break his promises. And so lean on him, push into his presence, seek him, ask him for the plan, the strategy, whatever you need to do. Listen for his voice. He's talking all the time. Listen for him and be intentional and not distracted, and delete the negativity. Delete it. Delete it. Delete it. Boop. That's it.